I remember the day I realized my sister was truly sick. It was a day that started like any other, but by the time the sun had set, the fabric of my life had started to unravel in ways I couldn't have imagined. My sister, Clara, had always been the strong one between us, the older sister who had taken care of me when our parents passed away. She was my rock, my guide, and the person I looked up to in every possible way. But that day, the roles began to reverse, and I wasn't sure I was ready. Clara had been complaining of fatigue for weeks, brushing it off as nothing more than the stress of her demanding job. But then she started forgetting things, little things at first, like where she'd left her keys or what she'd gone into a room for. I chalked it up to stress, just as she did, until the day she forgot my name. It was a Sunday morning, and we were sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee. I had just asked her if she wanted to go to the market with me when she looked at me with a puzzled expression, her brow furrowing in confusion. "I'm sorry," she said slowly, as if the words were foreign to her. "Who are you again?" I laughed at first, thinking she was joking, but the look in her eyes made the laughter die in my throat. There was no recognition in her gaze, no warmth, no familiarity. My sister, my only family, was looking at me like I was a stranger. "Clara, it's me, Annie," I said, my voice trembling as I reached out to touch her hand. "Your sister." She stared at me for a long moment, and then, just as suddenly as the confusion had appeared, it vanished. She blinked, shook her head, and then smiled as if nothing had happened. "Of course, Annie," she said, her voice back to normal. "I'm sorry, I must be more tired than I thought." But it wasn't just tiredness. That was the beginning of a nightmare I wasn't prepared for. Over the following weeks, Clara's memory lapses became more frequent and more severe. She began to forget entire conversations, important dates, and sometimes even where she was. She'd wander out of the house and get lost, calling me in a panic when she couldn't find her way back. It was as if I was losing her piece by piece, each day eroding a little more of the sister I had known all my life. The doctors were perplexed at first, running test after test, searching for a cause. When the diagnosis finally came, it felt like a death sentence. Early onset Alzheimer's, they said. A cruel twist of fate for someone so young, someone who had always been so full of life. I couldn't believe it. How could this happen to Clara? She was only 35, far too young for something like this. It didn't seem fair, and as much as I wanted to scream and rage against the world, I knew it wouldn't change anything. The disease was here, and it was progressing faster than anyone had anticipated. Taking care of Clara became my full-time job. I had to quit my own work, my dreams of going to college and starting a career pushed aside as I focused all my energy on her. I didn't mind at first. I loved her, and I would do anything for her. But as the weeks turned into months, the strain began to take its toll. I was 21, still trying to figure out my own life, and suddenly I was responsible for another person's well-being. I was exhausted, mentally and physically, and the worst part was that no matter how hard I tried, Clara only got worse. There were moments when she didn't recognize me at all, and those were the hardest. She would lash out, frightened and confused, and nothing I said could calm her. I would hold her as she cried, telling her over and over again that I was her sister, that I was there for her, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She didn't know who I was, and that broke my heart. It felt like we were both trapped in a nightmare with no way out. The doctors prescribed medications to slow the progression, but there was no cure, no miracle that could bring Clara back to me. Friends and neighbors offered their support, but it was hard for them to understand what we were going through. They would visit, bring food and offer to help. But when Clara had one of her episodes, they would quickly retreat, uncomfortable and unsure of how to handle it. I found myself growing more isolated, more desperate. I spent hours online, searching for anything that might help, any new treatment or therapy that could give us hope. But everything I found seemed so bleak, so hopeless. It was as if the entire world had given up on people like Clara, leaving them to fade away into the fog of their own minds. One night, after Clara had finally fallen asleep, I sat alone in the living room, my laptop on my knees, and typed a phrase into the search bar that I had never considered before: how to heal with the power of the mind. It was a last-ditch effort, a desperate grasp at something that seemed impossible. But as I scrolled through the search results, I came across a concept that caught my attention: manifestation. The idea that you could create your own reality through the power of positive thinking and belief was something I had heard of before, but I had always dismissed it as wishful thinking. But now, with nowhere else to turn, I wondered if it might be the answer I was looking for. The more I read, the more intrigued I became. People all over the world were claiming to have healed themselves from illnesses, overcome obstacles, and achieved their dreams through manifestation. They talked about visualizing their desired outcomes, feeling the emotions of already having what they wanted, and aligning their thoughts and actions with their intentions. It sounded too good to be true, but the stories were compelling, and for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. I spent the next few days diving deeper into the world of manifestation. I watched videos, read books, and joined online communities where people shared their success stories. It wasn't just about thinking positive thoughts. It was about truly believing that you could create the reality you wanted. It was about taking control of your mind, your energy, and your life. The more I learned, the more I realized that I had been approaching Clara's illness from a place of fear and desperation. I had been so focused on the worst-case scenarios, so consumed by the thought of losing her, that I hadn't even considered the possibility of a different outcome. But what if, instead of dwelling on the fear, I focused on healing? What if I could manifest Clara's health, just as others had manifested their own? I knew it sounded crazy, and part of me was still skeptical, but I was willing to try anything. So I started small. I began by visualizing Clara as she had been before the illness, a vibrant, healthy, happy woman with a sharp mind and a love for life. I pictured her laughing, talking with me, going about her day with the same energy and enthusiasm she had always had. I tried to hold on to that image, to feel the joy and relief of having her back as she used to be. At first, it was difficult. The doubts kept creeping in, the fear that I was just deluding myself. But I pushed those thoughts aside, reminding myself that I had nothing to lose by trying. Every morning, before Clara woke up, I would sit quietly in my room and visualize her as healthy and whole. I would imagine us having conversations, laughing together, and doing all the things we used to do. I would feel the emotions of gratitude and love as if it had already happened, as if the healing was already taking place. I also started speaking to Clara in a different way. Instead of talking about her illness, I would tell her how strong she was, how much I believed in her ability to heal. I would remind her of all the wonderful things we had to look forward to and encourage her to focus on the positive. I didn't know if she fully understood what I was doing, but I hoped that on some level, she could feel the change in energy. As the days went by, something remarkable started to happen. Clara began to have moments of clarity, moments where she seemed like her old self again. They were brief at first, a few minutes here and there where she would remember something important or recognize me without hesitation. But those moments became more frequent, and I started to notice a shift in her overall demeanor. She was calmer, less agitated, and there was a spark in her eyes that I hadn't seen in months. I kept up with the manifestation practice, growing more confident with each passing day. I began to believe, truly believe, that Clara could heal. I visualized her mind clearing, her memories returning, her strength coming back. I focused on the positive, on the outcome I wanted, and I refused to let doubt or fear take hold. And then, one morning, something incredible happened. Clara woke up, looked at me, and smiled. Not the confused, distant smile I had grown accustomed to, but a real, genuine smile filled with warmth and recognition. "Good morning, Annie," she said, her voice steady and clear. "How did you sleep?" I was stunned, almost too afraid to believe it was real. But as the day went on, Clara remained fully present, fully herself. She remembered everything, my name, our conversations, even small details from weeks and months ago. It was as if a fog had lifted from her mind, revealing the sister I had thought I had lost forever. The doctors were baffled when I told them about Clara's improvement. They couldn't explain it, and I didn't try to make them understand. All I knew was that something had shifted, something had changed, and I was grateful beyond words. Clara continued to get better in the weeks that followed. Her memory improved, her strength returned, and she started to regain her independence. It wasn't an overnight miracle. There were still challenges, still difficult days, but the progress was undeniable. She was healing, and I knew that the manifestation practice had played a crucial role in that. For me, the experience was life-changing. It taught me the power of the mind, the importance of belief, and the incredible potential we all have to create our own reality. I had gone from a place of hopelessness and despair to a place of empowerment and faith. I had seen firsthand what was possible when we let go of fear and embrace the possibilities. Clara's recovery wasn't just about her getting better. It was about both of us learning to live with intention, with purpose, and with the understanding that we are the creators of our own lives. It was about finding the strength within ourselves to overcome even the most daunting challenges and realizing that the power to heal, to change, and to thrive was always within our reach. Looking back, I am in awe of the journey we went through together. What started as a desperate search for answers had turned into a profound lesson in the power of the mind and the resilience of the human spirit. Clara and I emerged from that experience stronger, closer, and more connected than ever before. We had faced the darkness together and come out the other side, filled with hope and a renewed sense of possibility. And as I watch Clara now, living her life with joy and gratitude, I am reminded every day of the incredible strength that lies within each of us, just waiting to be awakened.